ask you something. When was the last time you truly sat with yourself? Not distracted, not scrolling, not filling the silence, but actually being with you. Because most people don't realize this. We can spend our entire lives surrounded by noise, people, responsibilities, and still not know who we truly are. Today, I want to talk about something simple but powerful. I allow time to look within to see the true me. Not the version shaped by others, not the version trying to keep everything together, but the real you underneath it all. Let's be honest. Looking within isn't always comfortable because when you slow down, you start to notice things, your thoughts, your patterns, your fears, your wounds. And for a lot of people, that feels overwhelming. So what do? Oh, we stay busy, we distract ourselves, we focus on everybody else because it's easier than facing what's inside. But here's the truth. Avoiding yourself doesn't protect you. It disconnects you. Looking within isn't about sitting there and overanalyzing every single thought. It's not about judging yourself. And it's definitely not trying to fix everything at once. Looking within is an awareness. Most people don't do this, not because they can't, but because they're scared of what they'll find. It's learning how to pause in moments where you would normally just react, and instead you observe. Just notice that. Observe. Don't fix. Let me give you a real example. Say someone cancels plans on you. On the surface, you might feel annoyed, but when you look deeper, you might realise it's not actually about the cancelled plans. It's the feeling of being rejected or unimportant or like you're not a priority. And if that hits something in you, that's exactly the point. And if you go even deeper, you might realise that feeling didn't start today. That's something you've carried for a long time. And no one teaches you to look at that. They just teach you to move on. That's what looking within does. It moves you from reaction to understanding. Here's another example. You keep ending up in the same kind of relationships. Different person, same outcome. And instead of just saying, why does this keep happening to me? Looking within us, what am I accepting that I shouldn't be? What am I afraid of walking away from? What part of me is choosing this? This is the part where people stop, because now it requires honesty. That's where it gets real, because now it's not about blaming others. It's about understanding yourself, or even something as simple as this. You feel the need to constantly stay busy, always doing something, always distracted. And when you finally stop, it feels uncomfortable. Looking within us, what am I avoiding by staying busy? What feelings come up when I'm still? Because a lot of the time, busyness is a way of not having to face yourself. Let that sit for a second. And this is the shift. Instead of saying, this is just how I am, You start saying, why am I like this? And what is this showing me? You become curious, not critical. You're not here to judge yourself. You're here to understand yourself. Because the truth is, everything you do has a reason. Every reaction, every pattern, every trigger. And when you start observing, instead of reacting, you create space. Space to choose differently. Space to respond instead of react. Space to actually change. And this is where everything starts to change. And that's where your power begins. Let me give you some simple ways to begin. Number 1, create quiet moments, even 5 to 10 minutes without distractions, no phone, no noise, just you. Number 2, journal honestly, not the perfect version. Write what you actually feel. 3, notice your triggers. Your reactions are reflections of something deeper. Number 4, ask better questions. Instead of what's wrong with me, ask what is this trying to show me? And number 5, stop running from discomfort. Growth doesn't happen in avoidance. It happens in awareness. When you start looking within consistently, something really powerful happens. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, and that's usually where people quit. Because you've seen things clearly, maybe for the first time. Your patterns, your fears, your habits, your emotional triggers. But if you stay with it, and most people don't, if you don't run from it, you start to understand yourself on a completely different level. And this is what you begin to realize. You are not too sensitive. Let's be clear on that. You just haven't felt safe to express yourself. You are not bad at relationships. You've just been repeating what feels familiar, not what's healthy. You are not unmotivated. You've been disconnected from what actually matters to you. You've just never been shown how to understand yourself. And that changes everything, because now you're not guessing anymore. Because now, instead of judging yourself, you start understanding yourself. And when you understand yourself, you can actually work with yourself instead of against yourself. You also start to recognize where you've been living out of alignment. Saying yes when you want to say no. Staying in situations that drain you. Shrinking yourself to keep the peace. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's where your power starts. But also where your responsibility begins. That's where the shift begins. You start making different choices. Not all at once. Not perfectly. You're still human. You're just more aware. But consciously. You pause before reacting. You set boundaries where you didn't before. You start choosing what feels right instead of what feels familiar. And here's something really important. Looking within doesn't just show you what needs to change. It also shows your strength. And this part people don't expect, because you start to see how much you've carried, how much you've handled, how much you've adapted just to get through certain moments in your life. You realize you never were broken. you were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time. Read that again in your mind. And underneath all of that, there is a version of you that is grounded, clear, confident, aligned. Not because life is perfect, but because you understand yourself. And when you understand yourself, you stop abandoning yourself. You stop ignoring your needs. You stop betraying your boundaries. You start trusting yourself. And that is where your life begins to change in a real lasting way. Not because everything around you suddenly shifts, but because you do. And that changes everything. So if you take anything from this video, let it be this. Give yourself permission to pause, to reflect, to feel, to understand yourself. I allow time to look within to see the true me, because the relationship you have with yourself shapes everything. And the more you understand yourself, the more aligned your life becomes. And that's where everything starts to change.